Hey everybody, I'm Rick Beato. I did a video yesterday about Keith Jarrett, and I didn't say, hey everybody, I'm Rick Beato at the beginning, and somebody commented on it. So I thought I'd start out and make sure that I said that. For those of you that don't know, it's good to see everyone. I was just talking about listening to some film scores and talking about modes and how certain modes evoke certain feelings. And I always get this question from people about what modes evoke feelings and what kind of feelings do they evoke. And I was flipping past some videos and I saw Thomas Newman talk about the 6 feet under, and he says that the raised fourth evokes a heavenly or celestial feeling. But that raised fourth definitely has that sound. And you'll notice when people want to have that lift in mood that they'll use a Lydian sound. I mean, Lydian can be used in many ways. You can use Lydian sound like that in a very simple way and then resolve it to major. You can use it in, I use it in that way, or I can use it in a huge chord if I did something like this. That's a much bigger sounding. That's kind of one of the. I want to say. Wait, I'm trying to think of the chord. Oh, this was it. I did this. For one of Dylan's videos, I played that's a chord, but I had this in it. So it was like an add 9 with the Lydian, with a sharp 4, 5 root, and then the sharp 4 again. At the top, it had this in it. It's not really playable with both hands. You kind of have to separate it, but Lydian sound can be, could be played anyway. Like I said. Can be up in a high register where it has this lonely, haunting sound. I just have 3 notes. I have the Lydian triad. Lydian can also be this, where it's more of a complete sound. So I've got here's a root of A, and then I have the 5th, root 9, 3rd, sharp 11, and 13. That's pretty much a complete Lydian scale right there. But the way the voicing is voiced gives it a particular feel. I've got C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, E, A, B, and then A in the bass. So that has a completely different vibe than this, or this. So you got the 6 feet under Thomas Newman sound, or you have this kind of really dark. Or you have this humongous sound, or you have this bigger kind of fully orchestrated. That's really right out of, I think this actual voicing is right out of the Toy Story, what they call the claw. He actually plays it here with B in the bass, but it's got an E flat major triad in second version, so B flat, E flat, G, and then A, B flat, E flat, A, but with a B flat in the bass. And then in the low register, it's got B flat and G, so it's like, then the trombones are split there, then the French horns play that, and then you have the rest of the trumpets up in here. But I love that sound. I love the way he describes it of a heavenly or celestial, whereas some of the other modes, like Aeolian, has a completely different sound. Aeolian has a dark, brooding sound. And then what's causing that brooding sound is that flat 6. And once again, that can be voiced many different ways. I can have just a simple sound like that. I can have a more complex sound like Aiden would play, like this, which kind of leaps out of the Aeolian and gives it more of an open sound, a more hopeful sound. But if I simply change the voicing here and change the note, that's still pretty hopeful, but I can go like this or down like this. And that's more like a forlorn, hopeless. Aeolian is incredible because it really can, you know. And what am I doing? I've got that flat 6 interval. As long as you got the flat 3rd and the flat 6, you've got the sound. Everything else is window dressing. But the way the chords are voiced is extremely important. Even if you're doing a pattern, let's say, so I've got F Lydian, then I've got G Mixolydian, but here's A Aeolian, listen. And then, ooh, bit dodgy there. I went from, I cracked up Aaron, he's moderating here, but I went from F Lydian to D Aeolian. Okay, so F Lydian is from C major, so I got then G Mixolydian. And I say G Mixolydian because all white notes. Then I go A Aeolian. Then, but then, oh, that's called a downward modulation. I talked about upward modulations in my Keith Jarrett video. If any of you watched it, some of you watched it, but I went in and I searched Keith Jarrett afterwards, and he was a low search term. Which is pretty hilarious on Google. One of the greatest improvisers of the 20th century is just a low search term on Google. Not to mention his 100 records that he's put out and all this incredible, contribution to jazz music and to improvised music of the 20th century. It's a low search term, Those of you that are under 45 years old may not even have heard of Keith Jarrett, or under 40 years old, but you should know Keith Jarrett. He did some of the most important jazz recordings in the 80s, but he does this piece, he's improvising on a piece from a record in the 70s, 1973. It's called Bremen and Lausanne, and it's he does an upward modulation in the piece where he goes from, I explain it in the video, but he goes from B flat major to E flat major, which is like this. Then he goes to C major to F major. And it's really cool because he's in B flat. He's playing a B flat 7 to E flat major. So it's a 5-1 to, that's a C7, C major with a sus4. But here's your downward modulation, or your upward modulation, because you've got, that's an inverted E flat major chord, okay? And that note is going to resolve up to that. But what I was doing was a downward modulation where you're going, so one, upward modulations go in the circle of fifths clockwise. If I don't know if you guys are seeing me the right way, but clockwise, where you're gaining sharps. So E flat major has 3 flats. If it's actually in E flat major, it could be in it could be an A flat major, but it's definitely an E flat major here because you have a B7, B flat 7 right before it. 5, 1, 2, C major, which resolves to F major. But he's playing a linear solo, but those are what he's implying in his solo. So that upward modulation is really, really, real beautiful. So that, okay, but I was doing this. Now, why is that a downward modulation? Because you've been hearing this B natural here on G Lydian, or F Lydian, I'm sorry. So I've got F, C, F, B, C, and then I immediately go to this sound. So we've lost this B down to B flat. So we're going in a flat direction and losing flats. So this is this whole sharp and flat direction modal modulation. And it can be used really effectively in film scoring and modern orchestral writing. But it sets up particular moods that if you really know your modes well and know how to play a voicing that suggests a mode, and like I said, all you need are 3 notes. I did my C Lydian chord like this. And it's just C, G, F sharp. And it's so, that's heavenly sounding, I think. I mean, it's really, but it can also be, really dark. I can do Lydian like this and make it kind of dark sounding. If I go from, I'm going from E flat, Mixolydian. I call it Mixolydian because there's so many notes of the scale in it, down to D flat Lydian. That's actually a chord I played Dylan in one of the videos, I think. Bum 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 bum. Should be able to sing those notes too. If you can hear them, you can sing them. But that suggests that scale. Da 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 da. That's your D flat Lydian. When you hear that chord, think of that scale and sing it. Da 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 da. Now I easily could have suggested that chord just by going. It's nice when you do these kind of really simple chain suspensions or whatever you might call them, where if I go like F major to C over E to D, I'm going D sus4 to D, to C major, B flat Lydian, a bit dodgy. C major, and I hold that E out. I'm just playing 3 notes. C major, C spread triad, C, G, E. Then I go B flat, F, E, and I resolve it up. Or I could resolve it up and down. You can't hear both notes. And I went to an A, I could go to an A major or F major over A, but I could make it go like this. B flat Lydian, B flat major, and then listen to this, and then I'll just go. And I get that A Aeolian, right? So I'll do it even simpler. I go. did my F Lydian there to D Aeolian. That's a downward modulation again. So B flat Lydian to F Aeolian, or to G major. I did a first inversion C chord to resolve the G major spread triad to F Lydian, F C B, and then I go to. So I've lost that B natural. Da da. These downward and upward modulations are extremely powerful for any type of writing, for film scoring, things like that, because they really evoke certain moods. And if you move even further away in the cycle of fifths, I mean, the biggest moves you'll make is when you're going, if you have simple. If I'm going C major and I go to F sharp major. Okay, so it's a tritone away, but I've tried to keep my voices in line. I could go. I got C, G, E, and the reason I went up to F sharp and then these two voices, the C moves up to C sharp, G moves up to A sharp, and then the E moves up to F sharp. There's really not a closer voice unless you did something like this. But I went from a 3-note chord to a 4-note chord. So some of the times when you're doing things like that, you want to balance the amount of notes in the chord so that it doesn't sound like it gets unusually crowded. So that's why you want to kind of stick to these kind of registers. You heard Thomas Newman do this a lot. If you listen to The Shawshank Redemption, the piece from Brooks was here, it's called, or Compass and Guns. And he plays, it's all spread triads that he plays. I forget if it starts on A minor. No, it starts here. Then he's going. I'm sorry. That's what he does. So he's going from a A5 chord, so A, E, A. Then he goes to a C spread triad, to a B minor spread triad. Then he goes to an A major spread triad to a C5, C sus2 chord. Let me do it again, play it right. A5, so A, E, A, and then C, G, C, C, G, E, so, and then B minor spread triad, B, F sharp, D, and then he goes to A major. So you've got a modulation there already, because you're in A, but it's really A minor, because you're going. When you go to the C chord from an A chord, you're introducing that third, so the ear is now, when you hear this A chord, you don't know whether it's major or minor until you play the next chord. So, and then B minor, but then he goes to A major. Okay, he adds a third, so that's an upward modulation right there. But he goes, no, he goes, so, and that right there, C major to D sus2 to, and then he goes to F, I think he goes to F major there. C sus2, he does, yeah, he goes to F major over A there. So that is another great example of using modes and using the circle of fifths with simple ideas out of these spread triads. That's not even a spread triad, it's an A5 chord. That means just A and E. And then then go to root position C major spread triad to root position B minor triad to a root position, A major triad to a C sus2 root position to a first inversion F major chord back down to A5. Then he's going from A5 to G major spread triad to F major, essentially. It's really an F5. If I put the A in there, I can go like this. This is all. Then he goes down to D major. It's a lot of cool things here. We start here in this A5, which is really A minor, and then we're in C major, and then you can say this B minor is really coming from D major eventually. It could be the relative minor, and then it goes 5 chord back to modulation, back to C, then back to F, right, which is still in C major, A5, but then we go A minor, G, F major, so it's 6, 5, 4 to 5 to D, okay? So a lot of really interesting sonic possibilities here with these, but you have to know what notes, like when he adds that C sus2 there, so it's just C, G, D. It's a very open sound. Lydian is a very celestial sound, but this is I like to call it an open sound. That's kind of an Aaron Copland thing. When you hear open fifths there, it's a real, you know, that gives you this kind of expansive sound. I'm playing multiple fifths, C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp. It's really, really beautiful, okay? So taking the notes that we're finding that where those half steps are in the modes, like if I take D Aeolian, so I get D, E, F, G, A, B flat, that's a flat 6, C, flat 7, and D. So 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, root. So the important notes in that thing are D, F, A, and B flat, because those are the notes that kind of define the sound. You got the D, F, and A, which makes you know it's a minor chord, and then that B flat gives you that flat 6. You can use the flat 7, you can use anything you want in there, but those essential notes here are where their half steps fall in the scale. That's where you find your really interesting things. And the half steps in the scale fall between E and F and A and B flat in a D Aeolian scale. So those are the things that I look for to create these kind of mood altering sounds and this kind of dark, brooding sound that you hear. If you think of Danny Elfman, what's he play here? And then what's he go to? In the Batman. I remember I listened to it this morning. He goes, no, it's where's it go? Okay, this goes to C sharp major, D flat major. That's right, because he's going. He's got that B flat minor or B minor flat 6, and then he brings in that F natural and modulates down to D flat major. So he's got the F sharp and the B minor to the F natural in D flat major. Once again, downward modulation. And then he actually goes to different keys. He's A minor to G minor. I'm going to do actually a video on that Batman theme. It's really, really cool. It's only about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but there's a lot of really cool stuff in it. But the first point of whoa, what is that? Is a downward modulation where he's going from B minor to D flat major, and you're losing you're losing a number of things, but to the ear, you hear that B minor to D flat major. So the D is going down to D flat, the B is going down to A flat, and the F sharp is going down to F. Those are really, really effective if you can find, but they're easy to find actually. If you check out my book, I have a whole chapter in the Beato book about upwards and downward modulations, or sharp and flat direction modulations. An upward modulation is a sharp direction modulation, which is going around the circle of fifths in the sharp direction, so that's counterclockwise, and a flat direction modulation goes around counterclockwise. So you can be in a flat key and move in a sharp direction. So I can be in the key of A flat, and if I move to the key of B flat, I've moved 2 keys in a sharp direction, even though I'm in flat keys. You don't have to be C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp. You don't have to move on just one side of the circle of fifths. You can start on the flat side and go D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, F, and be moving in a sharp direction, because you're losing flats and adding naturals. You don't have to be adding sharps like you do on the C, when you start at C, and you add F sharp and G major, and F sharp and C sharp and D major, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and A major, and so on and so forth. So anyways, those are really effective, and the further away you move, the more dramatic the effect. But being able to describe a mode in just a few notes is really important. I can define my my D aeolian. I can go like this, or I can do this. Okay, that's a very different sound than this. Same sound, same scale, but I did a different set of intervals. I can go. So I got D, A, F, A, B flat. That B flat's at flat 6. I have my minor third. I can simply play D, F, A, B flat, or I can group the notes together and I can play up here and play it like this. That's more like that Thomas Newman kind of sound. But if I put the D down low, it really gives it that kind of stark sound. Or if I'm in, I can do this. If I'm soloing it, that's a beautiful sound. That's a B flat Lydian major arpeggio. So B flat, D, F, A. But I'm playing F, B flat, D, E, F, B flat, D, E, F, B. That's a great, and I just have D, and A in the bass. It's a beautiful sound. So it doesn't have to be, it can be simple. It can just be like that. It can be this, or it could be this, or it could be this, or it could be that. So questions. You got any questions, Aaron?
Many. About Lydian, somebody asked, why is Lydian used as such a bright and pleasant sound when it's actually so dissonant?
I think that there's because it's a bright sound because the F sharp is leading up. So all modes have a direction based on where the half steps are. In C Lydian, I've got that F sharp wants to resolve up to G, so that it wants to move upward. Could move downward, but when it moves downward, it's moving down by step. When it's moving upward, it's moving up by half step. Okay? So the aeolian has the opposite issue. The aeolian wants to move down. Okay, that's where the darkness comes in, because when you've got the right? that D minor with that flat 6 wants to go down. That sounds so familiar. Let's see. What is that from? It's from the intro to every video that I put out. Now it's Herbie Hancock does it. It's the Herbie Hancock video. It's his up the chromatic scale. Those of you that watch my videos, you see all these things for masterclass. Speaking of masterclass, I have a masterclass here in Atlanta coming up on July 29th. And for those of you that live within driving distance, which is pretty much could be Birmingham, could be Asheville, Nashville, Memphis, Knoxville, Columbia, South Carolina, Charleston, Orlando, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, Birmingham, anywhere. That said Birmingham first, I think. Get your card, come here, 9 to 5, 8-hour masterclass where you can ask me these questions in person. And we can meet and hang out. And then we're going to have a hangout session afterwards. And it's going to be really, really fun. So I'd love to meet some of you in person. I met a few people when I went to see Victor Wooten here in Atlanta. I never go out anywhere. I went to see Victor play. He invited me down. And I went with a buddy of mine. I walk in the parking lot and somebody's like, "You're Rick Beato." And I'm pulling into a parking space. I got my window down asking my buddy Dan, "Hey, do you got $7? I forgot my wallet for parking in the parking lot." And he's like, yeah, I'll meet you over at your car. And some guy walks over to my window and he's like, "You're Rick Beato. Are you shooting a video now?" And I said, "No, I'm actually leaving for a parking space." And I just thought it was funny there. He's like, "I watch all your videos, man." And then after the show, people were coming up to me. It's like, "Rick Beato, it's Rick Beato." And I'm laughing that this is completely absurd, right? It's like, and they can't believe that I live here. And I was like, well, you have to live somewhere, right? I live in Atlanta. So those of you that want to come to the master class, please sign up. You can go to rickbeato.com and find it on there. Next question, Aaron.
We got a question on perfect pitch.
Oh, no. Oh, no. You're going to rake me over the coals? Go ahead.
Question is, somebody says they're 26 years old and...
Forget about it.
Can they develop perfect pitch?
No.
All right.
Wait, and I'll tell you why. And this is something that I should have included in my last... When I put out that perfect pitch video, why adults can't develop perfect pitch, I did it basically, and I never do this. I'm a totally upfront, honest guy. I always tell the truth in my videos and everything about how bad the music industry is and how many times I've failed, which is many, many times. But people, when I put out my very first video a year before, and I said, well, only babies can develop perfect pitch. This isn't based on something that I realized. There's tons of literature on this that as you get past 6 years old, you just don't develop it. And I use the arguments, okay, well, if perfect pitch if you could develop it, wouldn't they have perfect pitch 101 at Berkeley, at New England Conservatory, at Juilliard, at Curtis, at wherever, Vanderbilt? They don't have that. They have ear training, which is relative pitch training, because you can't develop it. The one thing that I forgot to say in the video is that people with perfect pitch that they've done MRIs on have a different brain structurally. There's a thing called the plenum temporale. It's actually symmetrical in most people. It's on each side of the brain in the prefrontal cortex. On people with perfect pitch, the left side is much larger than a normal person's, and the right side is actually much smaller. It's been pruned. They don't know why, but they have asymmetrical plenum temporales in their brain. So there are actually physical differences in people. And music training has to happen before age 6. It's pretty much universally agreed. You'll find one study with some guy or woman that wants to get funding, because you get funding, you try to do controversial things. I know tons of people that try and get grants, and you write grants to try and prove things or disprove things. But most people, I hate to say it, write grants just to make a living for a couple years. And they get paid from whoever, and they study things that, they'll study these minute things. Like if you're going to study perfect pitch, study what other traits come along with perfect pitch, because that's actually interesting, and how people's memory differs in people with perfect pitch. Or study the actual changes in brain structure that happens. But the labeling has to happen as kids. I was showing Aaron earlier some videos that I don't have up, they're hidden on my Facebook, of Dylan when he's 5 years old. And Dylan's doing all these polychords. He's actually playing on the piano. I say, Dylan, hey, play me a, D major over F sharp major. And Dylan's like, play me a, D major, whatever, A major over B flat. He knew how to play the chords then, and he knew them by ear. And I just taught him. I taught him the names. I don't ever do ear training with Dylan. Dylan's been down in the studio once in the last 5 weeks, and it's usually to come down and ask me if he can do a video chat with one of his friends or something. I don't know why he comes down and asks me that. He actually doesn't ask me that. He'll come down and complain about something, but we never do ear training. All this stuff he learned when he was 5 years old, 4 years old. But it's definitely developed. But he had perfect pitch when he was 3, before he knew any note names. He just knew that Star Wars, Superman, the Excavator song, and every other note had a name. But when I realized, I said, Dylan, what note is that? That's Star Wars. What note is this? Superman. Or that's why it was Superman, because he heard ba 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 ba. He recognized as soon as he heard that G, he's like Superman. First note in all these songs he knew. So then it took me 15 minutes to say, that's called B flat. Got it? Yeah. This note is not Superman, it's G. This note is not the Excavator song, it's C. Okay, great. 15 minutes. But here's a weird thing. For the first week, he only had it in 1 octave. I always forget about this. He had it in 1 octave. And then I was like, so he has perfect pitch in 1 octave. I was telling my wife. My wife's like, I don't know what perfect pitch is. What are you talking about? I mean, he can sing in tune? I said, no, he actually doesn't sing very well in tune, but he can hear any note, knows what it is. It's really rare. And she's like, oh, okay, who cares? Doesn't everybody have that? I said, no. But then the next week, I said, Dylan, see, this is C, this is also C, this is also C, 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 C. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he magically, literally 1 week later, any octave, any note, and then I play 2 notes at a time, B flat A, C, E, D, F sharp, blah, blah, blah. So he had it, but you can only develop it as a baby. Okay, next question. That was I go on tangents. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, we got a question about the diminished.
And hold on.
Yeah.
Don't worry about developing perfect pitch. It doesn't matter. If you have great relative pitch, people with perfect pitch that I know have incredible relative pitch and use the relative pitch much more. Like Dylan. When Dylan hears a chord like this, he's like, oh, that's C augmented over D flat augmented. You know why? Because he hears the sound. It's like, I hear a C augmented chord and a D flat augmented chord. He's not going D flat, F, A, C, E, G sharp. If I ask him, he has to think about it, and I'll tell you that. But his instant thing is he just hears the whole combined sound and knows what it is. So, and my friend Aiden, who has the greatest ear in the world, when Aiden hears any chord, he just plays it instantly, or any melody, he plays it and never, ever, ever makes a mistake. And he can solfege it perfectly. Anything, any melody, no matter how chromatic it is, he can solfege perfectly. And he uses that, actually, because it's way faster than thinking in perfect pitch. But he can think in perfect pitch super fast. Anyways.
We have a question about the Locrian mode.
Locrian mode, oh man. Yes.
How do you compose in it? How do you use it in your improvisation? And in the same breath, how do you maybe use diminished chords as well, which are based in the Locrian mode, and soften it and just make it more into something you can work with within a composition?
Well, if you do that mode, ooh, that is sweet. I love that sound. I love Locrian. You just have to know how to use the intervals in the scale creatively. You take those beautiful intervals. I take the C and the D flat, right? Those half steps, and you want to exploit those, and you want to exploit the F and F sharp. So I might just go very simply. Maybe I'll go up here even. I think that I put a little E natural in there for you.
Nice.
But that Locrian, I know it's, to me that just sounds, the F natural. It's such a beautiful sound. It doesn't have to be a really dark sound. Using it in improvisations, you use it over minor 7 flat 5 chords, you know. I have a whole video called the Locrian Mode, and you should watch it because I have a 4-minute piece that I composed all in the Locrian Mode. And it goes through all these different permutations of it, and I talk about the Locrian Mode and how to use it. And it doesn't have to be this dark kind of thing. But once again, you want to exploit where the half steps are, which are between the root and the flat 9, or the root and the second, flat 2, and the fourth and the flat 5, because those are where all the action is. That's where you get all your tension. And take those intervals, and I'm using as a flat 9 here, I'm using it as a major 7th here. So this is C to D flat or D flat to C. So if I've got a that's Locrian. That sounds great though. Okay, so I've got that minor 9 interval which contracts to a major 7 to that perfect 4th, which is beautiful. Or I've got this. Beautiful sound. Don't be afraid of that flat 2. Even in jazz, that flat 2 can work great when you're improvising. Natural 2 works great too. Low grade natural 2, totally different sound. Melodic minor sound. Love it though. Yes.
So somebody's asking whether you can talk about Aiden Essen and Keith Jarrett and the difference between them, their improvisation.
That's a phenomenally good question. Aiden's improvisations are, I mean, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, are far, far more sophisticated than Keith Jarrett's, harmonically, melodically. Aiden is not just a pianist, but he's a synthesist as well. Aiden makes records of electronic music that are very cool and very weird. He has a record called Toys for All Gods. It's all synthesizer music. He has many records that are synthesizer music. But when he's improvising, and some of the stuff that I have on here, his improvisations are just far, far more harmonically dense, sophisticated, and some of the older ones are technically far beyond. I mean, the virtuosic. I mean, Keith Jarrett is obviously a virtuoso. You hear he has an All the Things You Are where he plays all the arpeggios really fast. It's from a Japanese recording in the 80s and everything. It's incredible. And I'm like the biggest Keith Jarrett fan. I just made a Keith Jarrett video, and he's one of the greatest improvisers of all time. But Aiden is much, much more sophisticated and you know, there's just, you know, harmonically, there's nothing that Aiden doesn't play or hear, period. They both have perfect pitch. They, you know, but Aiden is just, his background in music seems to be, and his ability to play different ideas. And like I said, you haven't heard the things I've heard. I'll post, I've got a 10-minute improv that he did when he was here 2 years ago, and I've got some other things on my things from 30 years ago, and they're just, you know, they're just astounding. You know, people always ask me, what's that piece that you play at the beginning of your at the beginning of your live streams. And it's a piece from an improvisation he did here when he was at my studio. But he did it. Let's see if I have it, because you'll recognize it. Let's see. There's my iTunes. Go to Iden. And it's this one here. I don't have my glasses on. This is it. You guys all know this. I know you do. Am I centered, Aaron? Can you see me okay? I moved it. You guys all know that. So when Iden was here, on the first day he was here, for my app Neural, we had Iden come in because he did all the pieces that Dylan listened to as a baby. And then I wanted him to come in and improvise pieces in that style that he did in 1987. Now, Iden had moved on and never played in that style again. Well, the only time he did it was on those concerts. So I played Iden's stuff in the car ride here, and he hadn't played in 3 weeks. He was on vacation with his wife and one of his sons, and his son was at a Berkeley camp. And Iden's been married for 35 years or so to his wife, Randy, is a good friend of mine. I remember when they met back in the mid-'80s, early 80s. And anyway, so Iden's like, oh, I haven't played in 3 weeks. And I hadn't seen him in 25 years. And I didn't realize that, I didn't know what Iden was going to play, if he still had the ideas and all this stuff. And then he comes in and he plays 27 pieces. Well, one of the pieces he played was, we went through and we did different modes. So this was one of them. Where is it here? Let me find it here. This is called, it's, what's the one? Modal 2? Is that the one that we were talking about, Aaron?
I think so, yeah.
Modal 2? Yeah, here it is. Check this out. And then right after that, 10 seconds later, he played this. That was Aeolian. He did 10 modal pieces in 10 minutes. That was part of the 27 pieces that he did on the first day, or 29 pieces. And it was unbelievable. I just was like, okay, how about Aeolian? And that's what he played. How about Lydian Augmented? And then he played the first one he played. I mean, it didn't, just instantly, no preparation. He just starts playing. And there's never a bad note, ever. And the voice leading The first tune that I did is in the intro. It's so sophisticated. Now, he just hears stuff like that. And you've heard the super sophisticated stuff that he does. Listen to the string improv that he does on my channel that I put up a couple months ago. It was done in 1987. And every possible thing that, harmonic, it's so vast, the amount of stuff that's in this one improvisation. And he can do that, and then he can sit and do the most melodic things just in one key with there wasn't any extra notes in these pieces, And so Aiden is I don't want to compare, but I guess I just did. But Keith Jarrett is one of the greatest improvisers of all time. I mean, there's he's done some of my favorite records ever. Standards Volume 1, Birth. I mean, Spirits. I mean, I like all different genres I like all Keith Jarrett records. He played with some of my favorite players, Dewey Redman and Charlie Hayden and Paul Motion. He had great people in his bands. He was able to put together phenomenal bands. Gary Peacock and Jack DeJohnette for his standards group. So, just a legendary. Will go down as one of the greatest improvisers of all time. One of the greatest improvisers of the 20th century for sure. Questions, Aaron?
Mm-hmm. Got an interesting one here. Somebody's asking about different tuning systems besides equal temperament, and do people with perfect pitch like Dylan or Aiden, do they have a preference?
No. Tuning, Dylan and Aiden are unusual in that tuning doesn't really matter to them. My organ is 49 cents sharp, and they don't care. They'll play it. It doesn't matter. I play sine waves for Dylan, and one will be 3 cents flat, and I'll say, tell me which notes are not in tune with standard pitch. That one, that's flat. That one, and he doesn't care. It doesn't matter if it's in 432. He doesn't care. It's neither one of them. Aiden, his solfege is Aiden could detune his keyboard a half step, whatever. Whatever, he just plays. He can hear it. He knows all the intervals he's gonna play, and he'll pull the pitch wheel down slightly, so it's slightly out of tune and play for a section, everything. And they get such keen senses of pitch, but those things don't matter. If it's an A432, that's it's just darker sounding A, or no big deal. A442 is brighter sounding, It's just a matter. It's just a coloration thing.
Okay, to tie back a little bit to the beginning.
Yep.
Somebody's asking, what's your favorite movie score and why, or movie theme and why?
Ooh. That's a great question. Theme and score are two different things. One of my favorite scores is The Shawshank Redemption, because I think that it marries the visual and the emotional with the movie so well that without that score, you could say that about John Williams' music, but that particular movie, without the score, I'm just imagining Morgan Freeman's voiceovers and things without the scores, and it just doesn't hold up. And I'll tell you what's really kind of always bugged me, and I usually don't say things that bug me on here, but I'll tell you. I might have mentioned this one time, I think on a Facebook Live, but every 10 years, Charlie Rose hosts a special on The Shawshank Redemption because it's one of his favorite movies. And he has the director, Frank Darabont. He has Tim Robbins. He has Morgan Freeman on. And I've watched them, and they're fascinating. They recount the movie. They did it 10 years and 20 years. And the one thing that I never, ever heard them mention was the score. Now, how could they go, Thomas Newman's score, how could they talk about that movie and leave out the score? The score is half the movie. Go watch. A person that has reverence for film scoring is Steven Spielberg. He talks, there's a great interview or a great video clip on YouTube where Steven Spielberg is giving John Williams a life, who's one of the most incredibly, you know, I have a video where John Williams, I compare it to Gustav Holst. The only reason he wrote that thing like that, like the planets, is because they had temp music that sounded just like the planets. And George Lucas wanted it to sound exactly like the planets. So John Williams, getting paid, he made it sound like the planets. John Williams is one of the most creative, you know, not only melody writers and film scores, but some of the stuff he does in some of the incidental music, as I'll call it, are super sophisticated modern 20th century music of, you know, like a Webern or Penderecki. I was playing for Aaron a piece off of one of the soundtracks today, and it sounds like the Threnody for the Victims of Hiroshima, which is a Penderecki 20th century piece. It's absolutely beautiful. It sounds like that. It has that kind of vibe. It doesn't sound like a copy of it, but it has that intense sonic, like this, his just sense of orchestration is so amazing. And his melodies, his themes, nobody forgets his themes, you know? I mean, I love Hans Zimmer's theme to Interstellar. I love just that organ sound and everything. I thought it was really incredibly appropriate for the movie, and it was super stark and beautiful, and so it doesn't have to be complex. But Thomas Newman's thing on the Shawshank Redemption is so stellar. You know, I always laugh because my daughter Layla's favorite song is the what she calls the thunder song. It's the when he's crawling out of the pipe, and I always love to talk about that. That progression there is so ominous, and she laughs and loves it, and that kind of morphs later on where they're going that where I'm trying to think they have that climbing section that's like that where the violins are and it keeps climbing, then it eventually goes to 3 major chords. I forget what they are there at the end. I don't want to screw it up here and screw up the moment. But that progression is unbelievable. D flat major, E6-9, D sus4, B sus2, D flat major, E6-9, D Lydian. I'm sorry, D sus4 major 7. Sorry. Beautiful sound. Beautiful. And it just, there's so many pieces. That one that I talked about, Brooks Was Here, Compass and Guns, that is all from that movie. Just chilling. It's unbelievable. So that's probably my favorite movie score, although I've got a lot of favorite movie scores. And I'm going to be doing more film scoring videos coming up here in the next week or so. I'm preparing. It takes a lot of work to do those. Yes, Aaron? Are we about done or what?
I don't know. How do you feel?
How many more questions? You got some more questions?
Yeah.
I give ridiculously long answers. Did you guys mind about that? I can't answer anything with a yes. That just doesn't,
right.
That's not really my style. One more question.
Okay. Well, we got a truly short one.
Okay. No is the answer. Okay. Oh, sorry.
HK asked in the beginning of the stream whether you're a good chef.
Me? Oh, terrible. I can't cook anything. My wife won't even let me turn the stove on. My wife's a phenomenal cook, but I am not a good cook. Why would anyone think that I would be a good chef?
Because you're Italian. I don't know.
Oh, because I'm Italian? Aaron makes fun of me. He says I work by brute force, like I can't do shortcuts or anything on, when I'm editing or I power through anything. If instead of reading the manual, I just have to figure it out on my own and do it. So that's kind of the, I never read manuals. I have to figure out everything by just digging in and figuring out how things work. So with music the same way. And but I in conveying ideas and teaching though, my theory has always been, you need to be able to explain anything 5 different ways, because everyone has a different way of learning. Some people are visual learners, some people are use their ears, some people use their touch. So you have to be able to explain things in different ways. I also have some videos coming out. I'm going to do some videos with my other kids, other than Dylan, with my girls, where they're doing singing. I've got some really cool ways to teach your children music. So for those of you interested, the Beato book is on my website now, rickbeato.com. Go check out my website. It was built a couple weeks ago. Aaron built it. And you can get the Beato book. And I also have a new, 50, 75 page PDF bundle of 10 different videos that I did here. And it's pretty extensive. It's pretty cool that I have up there. So I actually have 2 different books up there. And I've got my book of modal etudes that I've been trying to finish. It's going to be a book of a bunch of modal etudes for guitar and for piano, for everything really. I'll have tab in it. I'll have a piano version and a guitar version or single note melody and double note melody version of it. So I think that's good. That's all for now. Please subscribe here if you haven't already to my Everything Music YouTube channel, and thank you for watching. Also, congratulations on you guys putting us over the top with 100,000 subscribers this past week. It's a real honor to have that. And let's try and get to 1 million next goal. See you later.